and then it's washed in there. Then it's rinsed, then it's washed, and it's rinsed, and it's washed, then it's exposed to the cleaning solution. Then it's rinsed and washed 3 times, and then it comes out. And on the whole, per scope takes 40 minutes to be done. Okay, this system that you use here, you're probably waiting 10 minutes for a scope. Okay, 10-15 minutes, which is bearable. In my opinion, it's bearable, but not at the expense of the health of the guys. So they've got to do it the best way they can and the safest way they can. When we take it out of there, then we actually then get a printout in the UK, and that printout follows that scope. A copy of that printout goes in the notes, and a copy of that printout then follows that scope back to a book that we keep a hard copy of who the scope's been used on and when the scope was used. And they have an expiry time for use. The expiry time for use is not put in a special cabinet called a drying cabinet, which again costs £100,000, which keeps the scope okay for use for 72 hours. Once it's in there, once it's removed, you've got a 4-hour shelf life, and then it has to be used. Unless it's a clear clinical incident and all you do is just write down life-threatening. Here you've got a scope, and 15 minutes it's going to be ready. So you don't need drying cabinets. You don't need all these things. The other thing is, in the UK there is strict regulation about how long a scope can stand. So if a scope hasn't been through a disinfector in at least a week, it has to go through a disinfector. Every scope in the unit I'm from, and the same as Vakar, will go through the disinfector every day. And because we have the drying cabinets, we have the weekend, and those scopes will stay in the drying cabinet. Okay, so we actually know which ones are used. Then if they actually expire whilst in the drying cabinet, they come out and they get put through the processor. So over there, regulation is pretty strict, and we keep it going. With regards to your ERCP scopes, they also do an extra thing with them. Every week, some units, they've got your bridge channel. They'll attach a little jet to it, squirt some water down, and send it off for culture and sensitivity. That's because of Pseudomonas.
Paul, I think it was early 90s, the Royal Liverpool, we had an epidemic of Pseudomonas meningitis
Yes.
in the Royal Liverpool Hospital. And we looked at patients who had been post-ERCP, and we looked very hard at it, and there was a lot of study done and everything, was investigated by the infection control and everyone, and eventually found that the contaminant was in the bridge channel.
Yes. It's in the wire section. And the reason why it's in the wire section, anybody? There was a patient with Pseudomonas, we go down, capillary action. The bridge channel wire, it's quite thin. There's a wire coming into it. As you put the wire out and the bridge extends and comes back, it draws the contaminant up. And then as a result of capillary action, it comes up the actual bridge channel. The problem with it is if you don't flush it correctly with Sidex afterwards, right, because that's what you use Sidex, aren't you? If you don't flush it, you flush it with your Sidex, and you leave it for your minutes, but if you then don't clean out that Sidex, it sets, and it's a fixative, and then your wire channel becomes very, very stiff. So that's when they actually started to be using a lot of things where we're breaking down bacterial issues, and I'll bring you some of that.
We had the machine, and the issue we had with the automatic washing machine is that the water supply that we had a lot of problems because it would get clogged very quickly. So we then put a filter, and now we have filtered water going into the machine. I'm not sure what the current status is.
Multiple times हमारे साथ ये problem है.
The problem is for one, you need good pressure of water, and the other thing is that the water should not have a lot of impurity.
See, a lot of units who had that low water pressure, because endoscopy units were built on ground floor in the early days, what they would do is pump to a header tank, and then they would allow that water under gravity to go to a gravity feed pump, which was a single impeller pump. I can do you the diagram. And the single impeller pump will pump up to 2 bar, and then the 2 bar then would pump through your filter and then bring out your water. And that's what they do. So it has to go to a header tank. The header tank then is actually monitored, and then it comes down and it's sucked from the header tank through a 2-bar pump, and then that then feeds your actual.
I think at least what we can do is that towards the end of the list, we actually have this done at least once for the scope, even if during the list of names or website explain. Like the first water guy shows the complete all the scope and at the end of the day, they are watching the go through the compromise. But we've had issues because of that. We want to get it not only here, in other two units also, I think we have the same issue.
It's basically the water quality that is.
Water quality is so poor. Certain parts of
So you can put in a triple filter and take it down there, but the problem with the filters, they'll block up very quickly, and you're talking less than a week, and a filter costs money, and you're going to take it down to the point.
all boils down, Paul, unfortunately, to obviously logistics cost, but also of being aware of providing the best service.
Yeah.
At times we always short of what we should be doing on that front.
I don't think it's falling down. You've got to look at what your infection rate is. And if your infection rate, and the last time you told me some figures, and that's comparable to UK units. In fact, it's less than most UK units. The only thing I would say is the guys who are doing it have to be as safe as possible.
The issue that we have at the moment is, I think our infection rate in ERCP is definitely much higher than what it should be. And obviously there are multiple factors in that. But this definitely
This is definitely a factor.
definitely a factor. What Waqar has said, I've had cases in almost all units that I go to, and we've had suddenly there are these infections, and I'm sure it almost certainly boils down to clearing that breathing area. Is there any burning questions on this?
The thing is we take it for granted. We go up, we take the scope, and we take it away. The fact is, I asked the question before I use any scope: would I allow that scope to be used on me? And if I wouldn't allow it to be used on me, why should I allow it to be used on you? And the next thing is, would you allow it to be used on your mother?
We're just discussing that, and the same point I made about doing procedures. I think whenever you do a procedure on anybody, if you can equate that patient to any of your loved ones, see if you would do it independently on your mother, father, brother, sister, wife, children, and your answer is no, I wouldn't do it myself on my family, then please don't do it on the patient without supervision. We would not learn unless we practice, and we have to practice unfortunately on patients, but under supervision is different, doing independently is different. So always when you're doing something which can cause an ill effect, ask yourself, would you do it on your loved one? And the answer is no. Ask someone else, someone who you think is good, to stand next to you and do it.
I think that's very important because it may not be even your loved one, it may be yourself. Because one of my colleagues, I wouldn't name where he is, but he called me because he had ascending cholecystitis from a stone in the CBD. And as I was in Pakistan, he asked me to come and see him, and I went downstairs. And I said, well, you need an ERCP. But he said, well, I don't think we should do it in my room because I was happy to do it for him. And I said, quite right, and he said, I would like to rather go to Karachi and have it done there. So the thing is, you might need it sometime yourself, or your mother or your wife or your children will need it. So in that case, always make sure that you have the highest.
This is a question that Waqar patients have come and asked me. One of the most, especially, they would ask me and say, well, there's hepatitis B, C awareness in Pakistan, it's getting more and more, especially in the literary, those who are literary. And they would ask, Doctor, what are the risks of infections through your endoscopy? And how comfortable are you doing this? And I actually answer back saying, I've done my mom and dad, so I don't have a problem doing you. I mean, that's as important as it gets for me. I think a point that Paul has highlighted very nicely, and Carl also saying, is that there is room for improvement. If Paul had not told us all this that is going on in UK, and we think, oh, that's that's available internationally. We can bin it, ignore it, or we can strive to improve and go as close as possible. And I think that's the point of doing all this. If you're not cleaning, at least as well as what we have demonstrated here, I think we should stop. This is the minimum. This is not the best. And that's what Paul is doing.
There is one most important thing. There is one hidden tool when you're actually cleaning a scope and making it ready for practice, and that is your actual chemical that it goes in. Okay? So if I was to say to you, you've got a bowl of glutaraldehyde, how long is that bowl of glutaraldehyde Sidex usable for? 15 days. Okay.
But it also depends on how many percent.
It's more that. Don't forget, you're working in an environment here where the temperature is higher, and it does affect how it gases off and it loses its potency. It's more this, but also there are sticks out there to test it. So you need to test it, make sure it's eligible and usable. Because if it's not, even though that colour looks fine, even though it still smells a little bit, because I've seen people go along and they go, oh, it looks okay, oh, it's okay. And the worst thing they've done is done both of those damn things, because your eyes don't tell you, your nose don't tell you, the stick tells you, but it's more that. How many uses, and I'll tell you how many uses in the UK, and you're not going to believe it. And this was I'm talking 10, 15 years ago. How many uses can a bowl of glutaraldehyde or Sidex 2% be used for? How many times can I dip a scope into it before I had to get rid of it? Guess a number. And I'm talking 10, 15 years ago. Okay, 100? Any advance? Any less?
10 or less than
20. And then bin it. Okay? You top it up, yeah, to keep your volume up so it covered it. But even if you topped it up with 5 litres, the whole lot went after 20 cycles, and that was it. It started at 40, they reduced it to 30, then they reduced it to 20.
Any questions? So we call it a day. We've got 2 other things to do during the next 4 hours that we have, or something like that, 5 hours? 4 hours. 4 hours. We have to do diaphragm, which we'll do while Paul is away. He has to go somewhere and we'll be back to give us a talk on
Last thing, in the UK, if you get a spillage of the chemical, you have spillage kits you have to use. If you haven't got a spillage kit, you have to phone the fire brigade. 2 fire engines.
Paul, do you
close
have
it on
separate
a very
scopes for hepatitis patients?
No, but it's
All that happens when you burn the toast in the competition.
more often it was odd hours, burnt toast,
And the whole of the competition comes out.
and you all have to come down in the middle of the night because some idiot actually left that night. Okay, let's go.
No, you don't. No, you don't. We
What
don't.
was the question?
You have separate scope for hepatitis patients. No, we don't.
No, it should be the same for everyone.
Yes, the only
policy has
ones
changed.
you have is for the mad cow thing.
I know it's changed.
That's changed.
That's changed 3 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah, you can use the accessory that are disposable.
so you're only using the accessories now.
It's disposable.
If you actually do, it's all disposable. But what you have to do is, if you've got mad cow disease suspicion, if you do TI biopsies, and this is the trick. You go and do your TI biopsies. What must you do? Because a lot of in the old days they would say, I'm drawing these forceps up and I'm contaminating the scope. That's not the problem. As soon as you've done your TI biopsy, 1, 2, and take it out, wash, and come back with the scope, no further biopsies. Those forceps are binned, and then you can clean the scope normal. But that's only a suspicion. In England, there is a place, Edinburgh, where we used to send all the scopes for the high clean, but they just store them and then they send. Leicester have got a £40,000 scope which they can't reclaim. And it's sat in a cupboard, and that's because somebody used it.
Well, you did not talk about that water bottle, because that's important also. Do you
The
change it in every procedure?
No, right. So in the UK, what we do is change it every list, and we actually we have the 500ml water bottle, not saline, because saline will actually, the salt in it will actually block up the channel eventually. But we have disposable, what they call Endo-Smart caps. I'll bring you some. You can try them. You won't like them. I prefer the old bottles. That's the reason why I don't say anything. Put them in the glutaraldehyde, soak them, make sure they're okay, and that's fine.
That's end of the list.
Disposable.
End of the list, the morning list and the afternoon list.
So at the end of one list, you actually cite the bottle
Yes.
and then